Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. Karen's madness sometimes reaches the point of mania, which this time she tried to take out on a person with a disability. More details after a short pause. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Megatron Karen strikes again. I'm a C4-5 incomplete quadriplegic, and although I have use of my upper body, I still rely on my power wheelchair to get me around town. I recently received a new power wheelchair, and I'm still getting used to using it. And although it looks slightly different than my old one, it's still a Karen magnet. This happened a few days ago when I was downtown doing some shopping. As I was leaving the mall, I saw Karen and her son, 12 years old, walking in. I wanted to turn and go the other way, but she'd already seen me. In hindsight, I should have stayed in the mall and waited for her to lose sight of me. But in that moment, I just wanted to get as far away from her as possible. So I exited the mall, hoping that Karen wouldn't follow me. But I wouldn't be telling this story if that were the end of it. There's a discount clothing shop just outside the mall, which I planned to go to. So that's where I went. I was in there for a few minutes when I got the feeling that someone was watching me, so I turned to see Karen and her son near the entrance and Karen glaring at me. When I looked at her, she immediately looked away, pretending that she was shopping. I headed to the plus-size section, hoping that she'd lose sight of her, but in retrospect, that was a bad idea. I call her Megatron Karen for a reason. When I got to the plus-size section, I naively thought I was safe. But oh no, dear readers, it had only just begun. I started looking through the selection on the racks when not long after I got that same feeling that I was being watched. I looked around and saw Karen at the end of the aisle looking at me. But when she saw me see her, she looked away. Then came a strange game of cat and mouse. I went to another aisle and she followed me. I went back the other way and she followed me. To avoid causing a scene, I left the store hoping to outrun her. Unfortunately, though, I was not that lucky. As I left the store and was going down the block, I got that same feeling as before. So I turned around, and wouldn't you know it, there she was. Me. What the crap is wrong with you, lady? Why are you following me? Karen. Excuse me? I'm not following you. Me. Okay then, going in the opposite direction to call her bluff. Guess what? The lunatic followed me. I could hear her coming up close behind me, so I stopped short, causing her to run straight into the back of my power chair. The sound that followed was very satisfying as she hit her knee hard into the bar that's at the back of my chair, hit her belly directly onto a hook that's near the top where a headrest can be placed, and almost fell butt over boob in an attempt to correct her balance. Karen. What is wrong with you? You could have killed me. Me. That wouldn't have happened if you weren't following me. Now what do you want? Karen, after muttering incoherent slurs in anger and pain from getting front-ended by the back of my chair, You insolent little... Get out of that wheelchair now before I call the police on you for assault. Me. Really, lady? How about you take a look above your head, pointing to the CCTV camera directly outside the store that I stopped in front of. That'll show you following me, as will the one inside the store we were in before. And the mall you followed me out of. Please, Karen, call the police. I dare you. Karen. Me. Better yet, how about I call the police and press charges on you for harassment? Through this entire encounter, her son was trailing behind her with his tail between his legs, with a look of embarrassment and shame on his face for what his mother was doing. Karen. Me, getting out my phone to take a picture of her face. This picture is time-stamped with my location. If I ever see you again, you'll leave me the heck alone, or I'll show this to the police who'll be more than happy to review the cameras. Karen just stared at me like a deer caught in the headlights with her mouth doing a brilliant goldfish impression. I left to continue my shopping. I haven't seen her since then, but I hope she took my threat seriously. I didn't want to take things further because that would probably get docs involved, Australia's version of CPS. Get out of your wheelchair now, or I'll call the police for assault. Logic. And our second story. Lazy hotel bellhop. My girlfriend and I went on vacation with her family last month. She and I shared a car with her two little cousins who were around 10 years old. We had 3 large suitcases and a couple smaller bags between the 4 of us. As we pulled up to the hotel, a college-aged bellhop walked up with a luggage cart. I greeted him and opened the hatch of my car, but when I looked up again, he was walking away. I waited to see if he was going to come back, but instead he leaned against the hotel wall and started talking to another employee. I unloaded the suitcases myself. A valet arrived to take the car, and he helped unload a few of the smaller items before leaving. I pushed the cart inside with my girlfriend opening the door for me. I could see the bellhop was still just hanging out. While waiting in line to check in, I saw several other bellhops moving luggage for guests and pushing carts, so I knew it wasn't just a matter of my expectations being too high. This kid just didn't want to do the work. I got us checked in, and we started making our way to the elevators. At this point, the bellhop reappeared. He grabbed the cart and asked, "What floor?" This really got my blood pressure up. Not, "Which room are you in?" or even, "What floor are you on, sir?" Just, "What floor?" I told him the floor and room number, and when the elevator arrived, he pushed the cart in, said we wouldn't all fit, and had to wait for another car. I looked at my girlfriend after the doors closed and, forgetting there were 2 small children present, said, "The F's this guy's problem." We got another elevator, and after arriving on our floor, the bellboy was waiting. I expected he'd lead the way, knowing the layout of the hotel, but instead he stood still, said nothing, and left it to us to find the room. We found the room without much trouble, and after unlocking the door myself and letting the kids and my girlfriend into the room, I turned around to see the bellhop unloading our luggage onto the floor in the hallway, not bringing it into our room. He sets the last bag down and has the nerve to hold his hand out, clearly expecting a tip, and said, "Is there anything else?" I took out my wallet, handed him a $50 bill, and asked for change. I want 5 $10 bills. He finally shows some signs of energy and hurries off to get change downstairs. He's back a few minutes later, and I know he thinks he's about to get a $10 tip. As I count the bills, I say thank you, turn my back to him, and loudly say, "Hey kids, who wants $50? As I let the door slam in his face. And our last story. Our new neighbor thinks she owns the building. Anyway, I, 31-year-old female, live in a block of 6 units, apartments for non-Australians. A month ago, the unit above mine went up for sale and sold fairly quickly, and the new owner moved in less than a week ago. This morning, I got up and went to take the rubbish out and found a note stuck to my door. I honestly thought it was a "I'm new to the building" kind of note, you know? Oh, I could not have been more wrong. Dear tenant, I recently bought your building and wish to introduce myself. My name is blah blah blah. I'm not going to put her actual name. And I think you'll find me a fair landlord. However, I do have rules. Everyone is to be in their units by 9 p.m. If you're going to be out past this, I suggest you find accommodation elsewhere. No pets allowed. If you have any, they must be relocated before I do an inspection, or I'll call the ranger to remove them. This is the only warning. I'll conduct an inspection once a month, and you'll be present to answer any questions or face eviction. Failure to pay rent on time will result in your eviction. If we all follow these rules, I'm sure we'll get along. Sincerely, blah blah. What the F did I just read? Fun fact about my building. We all own our own units. Nobody actually owns the whole building. I won't lie, I got to the number 2 and had a slight panic attack because I have cats and there's no way I was giving them away. Before I remembered, we bought our unit just before Christmas. We rented it from a friend prior, and when she told me she was thinking about selling it, we bought it. Didn't even have to move. So in some ways it still feels like renting, but we actually own our unit. Now, I'm not great at confronting someone. I tend to shake a lot, but at that moment I was quite angry, so I went upstairs and knocked on her door. You know that gut feeling you have? It was spot on. That door opened, and there stood a Karen, her hair blonder than my own, her nails long and bright colored. She didn't look happy to see me there. I introduced myself and explained that I lived downstairs and that I wanted to talk to her about her note. She started to talk over top of me, explaining that her letter was basic rules and even a child could understand it, and if I didn't like her rules, I could hand in a letter to vacate. Wow. I would ask if people are really this up themselves, but I work in retail and could answer my own question. I told her that I actually own my unit, she hadn't bought it or the rest of the building, but only her own unit, and that she couldn't enforce anything in her note. She didn't like that at all. She started yelling at me, saying that yes, she had indeed bought the whole building, and that failure to comply with her rules would mean I would be evicted. I was just starting to think maybe I was wrong when another neighbor opened his door. He came out and asked what the issues was about, and could she stop screaming as he worked nights and was trying to sleep. I told him I was trying to explain that she hadn't bought the building, and she started yelling again. My neighbor told her to stop, and then said the best thing I heard that day. "Are you stupid?" Her jaw dropped as he explained to her how wrong she was, and that he was, in fact, part of the strata committee, kind of like an HOA that oversees the building, and that she had no right to make rules for everyone. She gave us dirty looks before slamming the door. I thanked him, and he said in the entire time he lived there, he hadn't seen someone so entitled. Part of me wonders if she tried this thinking she could make things to her liking and figured people would be too scared to question it. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.